Hey guys, happy Thanksgiving and welcome to Movie Emporium's Thanksgiving Flashback Review, where I take movies from around my past, maybe yours, and talk about them. It is Thanksgiving. I hope you've eaten a lot of food. I hope maybe you've gone shopping. If you're not, good for you. But if you have, stay safe. So Thanksgiving doesn't have a lot of films that revolve around it. I did talk about Dutch, which is an interesting movie. But when we think about Thanksgiving, we think about one movie. I put two, but we think about one movie, and that is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is a John Hughes movie. It does star John Candy and Steve Martin. So the idea behind Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is Steve Martin is this lower level executive who has gone to New York. He needs to race home for Thanksgiving, but the way things are running out, he's being told that he's never going to make it, and of course he doesn't because a snowstorm pops up, and hell breaks loose, and that's where he meets John Candy's character. And John Candy is this shower ring salesman who has been traveling all around the country, and he is causing a lot of headaches for, he's carrying these big case that he has to carry around, and he's becomes a big headache for Steve Martin's character, and therefore, just causes a lot of angst. But when they're in the airport and then they travel to, I think, Iowa or Dakota or some of the Dakota or something like that, they end up road tripping back to Chicago, which is where Steve Martin lives. And so throughout this trip, everything and anything that can go wrong does go wrong in this movie. Steve Martin has to bunk with John Candy, and it's a one bedroom, one bed situation. And he takes a shower after John Candy, and all these towels are missing. It's really disgusting, but it's really funny. And then they sleep in the same bed, and there's that famous scene of I have my hand between two pillows, but it's really between two butt cheeks, which is really funny. And that's the kind of stuff that's going on in this movie. But it also there's a lot of heart as well in this movie. Steve Martin is just this grumpy grump of a person. He just wants to get home to his family. And John Candy's is a more outgoing guy who kind of doesn't, he doesn't live in that same scenario. Like I say, he's on the road all the time. And so when we go on this road trip, Steve Martin kind of has to learn that not everybody has the life that he has. Not everybody has the situation he has. And it's such a classic example of the odd couple, but it's done so well and so funny and so heart wrenching and heartbreaking and just humorous that it's one of these comedies that has gone down in history as one of the most fantastic, not only holiday comedies, but just comedies in general. And that's what John Hughes always did well. He knew how to write strange, crazy characters that had a lot of emotion, had a lot of heart, and it really shows here. I think one of my favorite scenes is, you know, they Steve Martin and John Candy have finally gotten to Chicago, and Steve Martin gets on the train to go back home, but he realizes John Candy has had his wife who has passed away, but he didn't know that, and he invites him home to Thanksgiving, and it's such an emotionally heart-wrenching scene to see that John Candy, even though they've gone through this crazy scenario that's kind of played out in like Tommy Boy, that they've bonded together and Steve Martin becomes a better person. But that doesn't take away from all the comedy that's going on in this movie. There's scenes where Steve Martin gets his wallet stolen, or John Candy he's been mistaken as being the one who stole it, and it's really funny. And there's a scene where they're riding on the wrong side of the road. John Candy or Steve Martin, one of the two, is driving on the wrong side of the road, and they crash between these two cars. And there was a famous thing in school, for film school where I went to, where they broke down the shot takes, because they edit, when they edit it, and it was pretty impressive. There's so many edits in that one scene where you see like the skeletons, and they just like, between the trucks and them, and it's really impressive. And then there's a scene where the car's on fire, and it's just like, and then we get the famous scene where Steve Martin has gone to get a rental car, but the car has been stolen. He comes back, and then we get the woman that was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and he goes on a F-bomb tirade that is one of the most impressive things. I don't know if this was If it was improvised or not, I don't know, but it's pretty impressive to see what Steve Martin was saying. And it's very disturbing. It's very effed up. But her response to it just makes the whole movie. He's got on this F bomb tirade, and she goes, "Oh, well, where's your paperwork?" He's like, "I threw it out." She's like, "You're effed." And it's just so good. It just boils down what this movie is, which is a nonsensical, heartfelt movie of two people that are extreme opposites of each other that work together. And I haven't even gotten to the part where Steve Martin and John Candy are so good together in this movie. They have such great chemistry that they make it work in a scenario that couldn't work a lot of times, and it hasn't worked a lot of times. And these are two actors you can tell that just love working with each other. Maybe it wasn't always the best situation, but they enjoyed what they did and they wanted to put out a good product. And it's there's so much good stuff that I'm not even talking about that I love about this movie. Just and it's such a shame that John Candy passed away so early in his life. I think he was only in his like 40s, because these are the types of movies that really set John Candy apart. Kind of like Chris Farley in a way. Chris Farley was a whole different situation, but I miss John Candy. I know I didn't know him. Like, I only knew him from movies. And it's the same thing as, Steve Martin. Steve Martin's still alive, but John Candy, to me personally, and like I said, I didn't know him, but he seemed like he had a big heart and a lot of fun with what he was doing. And when you see him in movies like this, you see him like Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors. You just see him in all these movies that he was just so fantastic in. And it's such a shame to see him go in the way he did. And it makes you worried that, it could happen to you. But all I can say is that John Candy and Steve Martin are fantastic in this movie. It's a well written, well directed, very funny, very humorous comedy, and is definitely a worthy holiday Thanksgiving movie. And it's why it's considered one of the best comedy Thanksgiving movies of all time, and just comedy movies in general. It's why John Hughes was as good as he was in his age. And he also passed away, unfortunately, but, it kind of sucks. But John Hughes, John Candy, rest in peace. But like I said, if you haven't seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, definitely watch it, because it's just such a classic movie, and it holds up, and it will hold up forever as long as people keep watching it. So, but that's going to be my take on the Thanksgiving episode of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. As always, if you like what you see, remember to rate, subscribe, check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. Email nlapola113@gmail.com. I don't usually promote my other podcasts, which I should more often, but definitely check out Trench Run. We just did a couple segments of where we watched the Star Wars holiday special. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you work safe and enjoy that turkey. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.